crowd erupts after John Kennedy wipes the floor with this arrogant college professor and her dirty tweets that he reads out at this hearing. You guys have got to see this to believe it.
So let me ask you, I listened to your and Ms. Hemingway's testimony and Professor Turley, so I got part of it. As I understand it, your position, Professor Franks, is that I think you used the word myth. It is a myth that the Biden administration used government to compel speech, private speech, but that the Trump administration is doing that. Is that a fair characterization?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Do you think perhaps you're allowing your personal political beliefs to affect your objectivity here?
No, I do not. What is guiding my answers here is that I'm looking to see what the Supreme Court has said. You notice that in the testimony about the censorship industrial complex.
I got that part.
No, I just
got
want
that
to
part.
clarify.
No, but I've only got 5 minutes. Your answer is no, as I appreciate it. Let me ask you a couple questions. You wrote a law review article in December of 2023 for the New York University Law Review, and it was about the two cases, Bruin, Supreme Court case, and Dobbs. Remember that article?
Yes, I do.
Okay. In this article, you said, I'm going to quote your words, "Taken together, these two cases demonstrate that the Supreme Court has embraced the use of the Constitution as a tool of racial patriarchy," end quote. Did you say that?
Yes.
Okay. And then you went on to say, quote, "When the Supreme Court declares that there is a constitutional right to armed self-defense in public, it openly embraces and promotes a culture that privileges white men's ability to terrorize and kill those that they perceive as threats," close quote. Did I read that correctly?
I believe so. Thank you for reading.
Okay. And did you also say in that article, I'm going to quote again, quote, "by simultaneously expanding white men's right to kill and constricting women's right not to die, this Supreme Court," referring to the current United States Supreme Court, "has turned the Constitution into a homicide pact as well," close quote. Did you write that?
That sounds like me.
Okay. In November of 2024, you tweet, don't you?
I'm not sure what the current terminology is for it, but yes, I am sometimes on the social platform that was formerly known as Twitter.
Yeah, you're on a lot, aren't you?
I'm not sure what the relevance of that is.
You're trying to be provocative on there, don't you?
Again, I'm not sure what the relevance
Well,
of this question is.
let me show you the relevance. On November 7th, 2024, from your tweet, here's one of your tweets at 2:41 p.m., quote, "The majority of Americans hate women. The majority of Americans hate women more than they love anything, including democracy," close quote. Did I read that correctly?
I am not sure what this has to do with the subject matter of this
Did
hearing.
you say it?
I do not have those words in front of me. I probably said something along those lines, but
Yeah,
what is
you
the
said it.
relevance of
Here
that
it
to
is,
this
big as
hearing?
Dallas, right there.
Yes.
But your political beliefs don't impact your feelings about President Biden or President Trump.
I don't have feelings about either of them. What I have
Sounds
is
to me
doctrine.
like you have your favorite feeling is anger. Let me ask you this. You issued another tweet. This was in May of 2022. You've just been tweeting up a storm. You said, quote, "There's a reason why the conservative-dominated Supreme Court thinks the Constitution does not contain a right to an abortion, but is convinced that it contains an individual right to possess firearms. And that reason is white male supremacy," close quote. Did I read that correctly?
Is there a question in this?
Did I read that correctly? That's
Is there
my
a question that is relevant to this hearing?
Did
I don't even have to be in her class, but I already know the message that she pushes out to her students. That the white man is so evil, he's the reason that you're struggling, he's the reason you stubbed your toe, da 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 da. Basically, she has to make the white man a scapegoat for every single person all across America. Any problem you have, blame it on them. And this is a person who is being paid, not to educate, but to brainwash anyone that's seeking a further education in college. It sickens me. And she keeps repeating, what relevance does this have? What relevance does this have? If somebody tweeted out the most insane, hateful tweets, I think that's relevant to the type of character and person that you are. Maybe I'm a crazy lunatic, but personally, I'm not going to put much weight into anything that you say from there on out.
Really think that the United States Supreme Court, you're an officer of the court, is guided by white male supremacy?
I believe that the First Amendment prohibits the president
Did you
and other
say
state
that?
officials for punishing people for
Did
their
you honestly say that, Professor?
I
And you
believe
expect us,
that the First
as a
Amendment,
Democratic witness, to take you seriously? Are you kidding me?
I believe that you should take
You
the First
heard of
Amendment
curb your
seriously, sir.
enthusiasm? Here's my saying, curb my nausea.
Dr. Franks, we're here to talk about free speech, correct?
Yes.
And we're here to talk about that being a fundamental right guaranteed by the Constitution, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And the Supreme Court plays an essential role in guaranteeing those constitutional rights, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I want to talk to you about a tweet that you had in January 2024. The Supreme Court is a death panel. Is that your opinion?
In the context of this hearing, I think it is important to emphasize why I am here, which is to talk about my views on the First Amendment and my understanding of the
That's
doctrine.
not what I ask you. Do you think the Supreme Court is a death panel?
In the
for
context
free
of the cases
speech?
that, not for free speech, no, that was not the context of that particular
Oh, my goodness.
communication.
Okay. Well, it appears that you see the Supreme Court as a death panel, and that is some of the same rhetoric that unfortunately we continue to hear from some on the left who are trying to villainize justices who are doing their job. And I would like to just ask you, knowing that you have put this out, that the Supreme Court is a death panel, then let me ask you this. Do you look at Justices Sotomayor, Kagan, Jackson as members of the death panel, or is this just the justices that you disagree with?
I do not believe that the comments that you are referring to have relevance for this particular hearing, but here's what I will say. This is an administration that people that he disagrees with. So yes,
Okay,
if your question is, do I defend judges?
I'm ready to
Am
move
I
on.
worried
Thank
about
you.
judges'
Ms.
security? I
Hemingway,
am.
I'd like to
I am
come
worried
to
about this
you.
administration essentially threatening those judges.
want to talk with you, Ms. Hemingway, about the State Department's use of the Global Engagement Center to censor news outlets like the Daily Wire and the Federalist. I know that this is something that you have had to deal with. And Daily Wire is located in Tennessee. We're proud of them. We are delighted that they chose to move from California over to Tennessee. And it is my understanding that the Global Engagement Center was created to counter messaging from bad actors, including terrorist groups, but the Biden administration weaponized it to silence conservative groups. And what has the censorship, I call it the censorship industrial complex, what do you think they're trying to hide when it targets outlets like the Federalist and the Daily Wire?
Thank you, Senator Blackburn. Yes, our reporter, Margot Cleveland, who's our senior legal writer, uncovered through her reporting facets of the censorship industrial complex and learned that the State Department was one of the federal entities that was engaging with non-governmental organizations and other entities in big tech to market, promote censorship tools and blacklists, which were then used against my publication, The Federalist, and also The Daily Wire. Publications that are a threat to the reigning orthodoxies are targeted by the censorship industrial complex. They want to exist without people pointing out their lies or the fact that there are really important debates. And so we are suing the State Department for that, and it is ongoing, this support of the censorship industrial complex. It is the bureaucracy, really, which perpetuates this even more than a particular administration.
Yes, and I think it's so important to note that robust, respectful, bipartisan debate adds to our freedom, helps to keep us free, and allows that debate in the public square. And when you have an entity that becomes weaponized and shuts down one side of that speech and only allows speech with which it completely agrees, that is when you have that censorship writ large. My time expires. Professor Turley, I have a question I will submit to you for the record. Thank you all for joining us.
The thing that I find so crazy is that there are actual human beings who believe censorship is not real. The fact of the matter is, if you said anything in the past 4 years on Facebook, Twitter, any mainstream social media platform, and said anything about COVID, or you said anything controversial on one of these platforms, there's a high likelihood that your post would have been removed. So much so that the New York Times published something on Twitter 2 weeks before the 2020 election regarding Hunter Biden and the laptop from hell. And what did Twitter do? They took it down. This thing was 100% true, and they took it down without even investigation. That tells you one thing and one thing only. They did not want Donald Trump winning the 2020 election. Let's just take it down because this helps Trump and it actively hurts Joe Biden. That right there is all the evidence that you need. And if you want to take it one step further, Mark Zuckerberg goes on Joe Rogan's podcast and actively says that the Biden administration, while he was president, actively pressured him any post that mentioned any of these things, and there was a whole list of them. What happened to being able to post whatever the heck you want on social media? That's the type of society I want to live in. You could say the most controversial thing in the world. That does not mean that I have to engage with it. And in fact, if you have such a beef and if you have such a disagreement with what somebody's posting, why don't you debate it with facts rather than just taking them down? That's the most cowardly type of behavior I can even fathom. All of these social media companies that are receiving funding from the government should not engage in censorship whatsoever, because they even went so far as to censor President Donald Trump. And they took him off of all social media that he had to create his own social media just to be able to get his word out there. That is how crazy and dystopian the world was the last 4 years under Joe Biden. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on this down below. Do you think that government should have a say in what gets posted on social media or no? Let me know down below. I'd love to hear that. And if you enjoyed, make sure to smash that like, comment, subscribe, and wish you guys nothing but the best. Till next time.